Hello, everyone, and welcome back. My name is Francesco Cipollone. I'm the CEO and founder of Phoenix Security. But today I come here with another hat, the community hat. As a community, we came together to analyze what is the evolution of vulnerability and what are the framework available. And we find a little bit of a gap in terms of evolution and what to do and where to do when. In recent years, especially in the last 2 or 3 years, we've seen an increased amount of attacks on the software supply chain and an enormous amount of vulnerability data being available out there from different sources, from the US government with CISA-CAV to the NTSC alerting on critical national infrastructure, from EPSS, a collaborative work from the community to bring in the probability of exploitation of specific vulnerability based on different factors, and the recent national order for the US for cybersecurity to actually remediate the known exploitable vulnerability called CISA-CAV. But as a community, we came together to define what is the path forward after you discover vulnerability and what is a mature vulnerability management program and what is an immature vulnerability management program, and what are the steps that fundamentally identifies problems from the discovery of the problem to the enrichment, to the correlation of vulnerabilities, prioritization, and all the way down to the resolution and remediation. The framework is broken down into fundamentally the discovery aspect, the prioritization, and the actionability part of a vulnerability management program. And the reason we put this together was because there is a clear gap between who defends an organization, what are the steps and the process that forms that remediation from the discovery aspect all the way down to the actionability and root, versus what an attacker will need to do. So we'll try to, with Phoenix, we try to accelerate some part of the remediation, but with this framework, we're here to describe fundamentally how to automate certain things and what are the different steps to actually mature an organization. The framework is, as we see here, and we're going to focus today on the detection on in 5 levels, with the level 0 that is fundamentally completely mature, all the way down to level 5 or maturity level 5 here on the vertical axis, to describe a very mature aspect. The detection aspect that we're going to focus on today is how do you find vulnerability. The other aspect is the aggregation, the asset management, the enrichment, and then the prioritization, and follow on the action and the root. We're currently at a second version of the framework, that is this one, where we have divided a different step in more level of maturity. But today, let's focus on the detection. The detection aspect is here to describe what to do in scanning and identifying vulnerability. The maturity level 0 is basically you don't have any capability to identify vulnerability, and you're purely reacting if you have a vulnerability detected by somebody else. So if you are part of a compromise of an attack. The maturity number 1 is basically the first and basic level of vulnerability identification, and usually stands with policy and procedure mandating where an organization needs to be to detect vulnerability. That's a statement. That could be a code review, that could be an occasional pen test, that could be an intention to get to a specific point. And it might be some effect, some regular pen test on a yearly basis or a 6-month basis, or you might be driven by a specific regulation or specific client requirement to actually demonstrate your posture. In general, at this point in time, unless you're a very focused software company, there is no code scanning, there is no peer review of code, there is no open source or static code analysis of open source library or library detection or SPO. This is really the baseline of maturity. Now, the step number 2 is where we start seeing some level of evolution of the scanning capability. At this point in time, we still have a policy that mandate maybe more strongly what you have to fix and where, and what are the controls that are in there. At this point in time, we have maybe more frequent pen tests, and in order to mitigate those pen tests, and in general, when you do more frequently pen tests, you tend to find a lot of commonly available vulnerability that you could find yourself with automated scanning. And at this point in time, we maybe find external attack surface or external scan or third-party supply scan. But in general, it's ad hoc. And that goes more into the maturity level 3, where we'll see a more frequent scan. At this point in time as well, we have, at least in the UK, driven by Cyber Essential, some more infrastructure scan or endpoint scan or assessment of maybe the image that laptops or servers are getting built on. And we start seeing some level of analysis, maybe of endpoint, laptops, and server, mostly driven by regulation. At maturity level 2, we might find as well some level of peer review of codes, some level of code analysis, either static or automatic in the pipeline, and some level of more and more of open source library scanning, without naming names. If you have a pipeline scanner or something integrated in your repository, you might have these out of the box. So that has lowered the bar, and that's why we put this in maturity level 2. At this point in time, you probably have vulnerability sitting at different level, and that's where we're gonna look at the aggregation and deduplication, especially if you are growing as an organization and as mature. Maturity level 3 is really a mid-level mature organization that has more strongly mandated policy around what to detect, how to detect it, and a little bit on secure SDLC or how to secure your software at scale. At this point in time, you probably have more frequent pen test or some level of automated pen test, or some level of external attack surface scanning. At this point in time, probably if you're a software company, you have some level of automated open source vulnerability detection and scanning, as well as some more level of hardening of image on a more frequently basis. You might have, and probably at this level of maturity, level 3, you will have probably some level of, or some software that identify open source vulnerability in your libraries and generation of SPOM, especially if you are, or software bill of material, especially if you are in the US, where this is becoming more of a norm. Image, golden image, or image scanning will become more of the norm at this point in time, and more widespread between endpoint, installed app, and you will start seeing at this level of maturity more scanning, or you should start doing more scanning of network. At the next level, maturity level 4, you will have some level of automation of all the code scanning in your pipeline, where you have automated code scanning from your static code analysis, some level of automated library scanning, and maybe some level of auto remediation and auto patching. Even though that we will cover it in the action part of the framework, today we'll focus on the detection. Image scanning, at this point in time, you probably start looking at also container scanning. It might be early in the stage, so it doesn't necessarily need to be in here, but you might be looking as well on how container is structured. At this level as well, you're probably doing some level of infrastructure as a code or cloud security assessment for your cloud environment, as well as probably API scanning at this point in time, either manual or assessed through pen test or with automated tool. Maturity level 5 is your holy grail of highest maturity level, where most of your security control from a code perspective, from a library perspective, from a detection perspective are mostly automated. You probably have at this point in time as well web dust, as well as maturity level 4, automated and scanned whenever you build an API and a software. You probably have as well mature practice around image identification and scanning in production as a 2 different level, with focus on the image generation, the hardening of image, as well as the production of secure infrastructure as a code. This framework is available for everybody to consume as a doc. All the documentation is available at www.phoenixsecurity/vulnerability management framework. We went through and explained a little bit the reason why we created the framework and all the link of the collaboration. There is a Slack channel, part of OWASP, called Project Vulnerability Maturity SIG, that is available for everybody to join and collaborate. And there is also a Git repository available for everybody to join, propose PR to the framework, and look at the artifacts, download, use it, and assess. I'm going to do a number of these videos to explain the various part, the core part of the framework and how to use it and how to assess it as part of your organization. I hope this was informational. As always, with Phoenix Security, we're here and happy to help getting you to higher maturity with an assessment and tooling and automation to aggregate, contextualize, and prioritize vulnerability at scale. This is Francesco. I'm the CEO and founder of Phoenix Security. I hope you stay mature and secure every day a little bit more. Thank you very much for listening.
Phoenix. Fix vulnerabilities today before attackers exploit them tomorrow.